Subtle skills, big results.
Welcome to the Ninja Selling Podcast.
We are back with the Ninja Selling Podcast. It's Rob Nelson, and this one's really cool because Eric Thompson and I alternate hosting the Ninja Selling Podcast, and today we're going to do it together. So it's you, me, and no guest, Eric. But Eric, welcome. It's awesome to talk to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Rob, this is great to do together. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate the opportunity, of course, to connect with all the ninjas out there in the Ninja Nation. And this is going to be great.
Eric, I think it's been a long time. It might have been 6 months. When we profiled The Drama-Free Zone, your amazing book, that if people still haven't checked that out, either check out the podcast or check out the book, because it is one that I anchor to frequently in my own life of how to live a drama-free life. But I think that's the last time that we were on here together. So
I think you're right.
This will be fun today. Eric, you just wrapped this week hosting the Ninja Halftime Webinar. Tell us about the halftime webinar, and we're gonna deep dive some of the things, but actually we're not gonna summarize what people can go on and find already. I think it's time to be back in the locker room, and let's have that behind the scenes conversation about what's going on.
Let's do that. Yes, I just hosted the halftime webinar for the Ninja Nation. We had a big turnout. Anyone who didn't have a chance to watch that webinar, you can find it on Ninja U. We had a great 90 minutes with hundreds and hundreds of ninjas who were on there. Need to give credit where credit is due. John Brewer is the author, the architect of the content that I shared in that webinar, but I enjoyed it. We had lots of takeaways. And you know what? We started by saying that no team wins a championship in the first half. Right. So we just hit halfway through the year. And so that's, of course, why we had the halftime webinar. And it was a chance to check in on how we're doing, what's working, what's not working. Very important, make adjustments, decide what adjustments we're going to make. And then even more important, take action. So that's what we focused on. But you know what? No team wins a championship in the first half. Now, of course, the first half does a whole lot to help you to win the game. You'd rather be ahead at halftime, but there are examples of teams that were tied at halftime and they won, and examples of teams that were behind at halftime. And I know, Rob, you have some thoughts around that. Maybe Rob, if you could share what you were just sharing with me, your research on teams ahead at halftime, and then what happens with teams who are behind at halftime and end up winning.
Yeah, Eric, I'm one of those people I'm not a huge sports fan. Okay, so I don't follow any teams. I love attending live sporting events. The party personality part of me comes out and has a great time. But I'm not a sports guy like a sports guy. However, I love the statistical models and the amount of data collected about sports. And I don't bet on sports because I used to bet on Russian ping pong, and that's not allowed anymore. But I will tell you this, the collection and digestion of data around sports is absolutely incredible. And it's because there's a big gambling function that is behind it. And so there's all these models out there. And it is pretty unanimous, Eric, that in team sporting, the team that is ahead at halftime has between 75 and 77% odds of winning. So 75 to 77% of the time, the team, even if it's 1 point or a huge margin, they are likely to win. And what I was sharing with you is that oftentimes the 25-ish% of the time when that doesn't become reality is because of a major disruptor, not a small tweak. And oftentimes at halftime, the thought is we just need to tweak what we're doing. We need to do something a little bit different, and that'll bring a completely different result. But the reality of that is, and it's evidenced by the way color commentators talk about it, they always say, this looks like a different team in the second half. Well, it's not a different team. It's actually the exact same team playing a completely different game.
It's the same team playing a different game. That is a massive takeaway, because I'm guessing there are some ninjas listening who might feel like they're behind here at halftime. And we're saying that that's okay. There's evidence that you can still win the championship. You can not only win the second half, but win the whole game, as long as you show up in a completely different way, right?
Yes.
And you're the same person, mindset, skill set, action, right? Your mindset's different. your skill sets are developed and enhanced, and your actions are massive, taking massive.
And I think an interesting thing, because you kind of talked about this in the halftime webinar, and I don't want to have a painful conversation here about sports analogies, but the reality of this situation is there are parallels and they can be really fun to explore. And Eric, one of them is that most of the time that the team comes back and wins the game from behind, it's because they got back to fundamentals and they didn't do something really extravagant in the second half, but they actually they almost went away from that. So they were playing a new offense or they were playing a new defense. And it often comes back to fundamentals. And one key thing, and I think this is a perfect segue for you to talk about how this would happen in someone's life, they change the rhythm of the game. And so just like everything in our life has a rhythm, a game has a rhythm, and both teams sort of learn the rhythm of the game. And one thing that can be incredibly disruptive for the benefit of the outcome is to change that rhythm, but you don't change the order of the notes. You don't change where there's a rest and where there's a note. But what you do is you change the rhythm, and suddenly you have a completely different outcome.
Yeah.
So run with that and tell us if there is a rhythm to this year, what's that supported by, and how would somebody go about changing that?
Yeah. Well, when you say rhythm, what comes up for me is routine, and specifically morning routine. And when I think about rhythm, I also think about your vibe, right? We say your vibe attracts your tribe. And so your vibe is really about your energy. So where is your energy, and what are you doing in your routine to either shift your energy or keep it where it needs to be? So people who are stuck, what we see often, people who are maybe behind at halftime, well behind their goal, what we see often is that they've gotten out of their routine. They've gotten out of the habit of doing things that put them into a rhythm, into a vibe that's going to be more effective to them. So in coaching, we're always clear to say that we're not life coaches. We are business coaches, and we coach mindset. And the way that we coach mindset is by asking people what they are doing to keep their mindset in a high positive place. So if someone feels like their vibe is off, if they feel like their rhythm could be better, the first place to look is, what are you doing first thing in the morning? Rob, I have one other thought on rhythm, and it's the rhythm and the way that ninjas are connecting with the people that they're connecting with. And what I hear time and time again from our ninja coaching clients who are getting massive results, and when I ask them about, well, what was it like before the massive result, and what are you now doing after, or what was the shift, what was the change? And so often they talk about they changed how they were interacting with people, and they went from seeing it as just something they have to check off the list. Well, I got to get my 50 live done, so I guess I have to talk to this person and ask them a question so I can check it off the list, to no, I realize that I'm there to show up and be very present with them, and to be very tuned into their answer, and to know that my next question is embedded in their answer. And I'm going to be so thoughtful and so interested in that person. And it's not about the numbers. It's not about just checking it off the list. It's about a true, authentic, deep connection. Same with real estate reviews. I realize that it's not just about just sending it out and getting my real estate review done. It's about adding incredible value with this real estate review and giving this person great insights about what's happening with their property, what's happening in their neighborhood and in the market, so that they can be even more aware and feel even better about their real estate investment, right? So they changed the rhythm of their interactions, and they became much more intentional, and it became a much deeper connection.
Yeah. Yeah. It has a flywheel effect as well, that whole way of thinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Eric, it's the perfect segue to your opening mindset question in that webinar was, are you swimming in abundance or swirling in scarcity? And one of the things, as I thought about that came up for me, is that there are these conceived notions that we have based upon probably only our own experiences as to what's going on out there, like what's going on in the market and what opportunities are in front of us. And some of us, being me and others who think the way I do, sometimes need the outside voice or the evidence or the logic that we find necessary to set a mindset for us. And one of the things I find really interesting right now is that our industry has had a tremendous amount of noise starting in the pandemic. And historically, real estate's had a lot of noise. It's an industry that attracts a lot of attention because it's a big piece of our economy. So there's always something going on. But since the pandemic, it became a very in vogue dinner table conversation to talk about real estate. And that hasn't really changed because the sporadic market kind of turned into a very chaotic market for a period of time, which really led nicely into some regulatory reforms and some legal cases that made a lot of headlines about our industry. And the noise was just shifting from one frequency to another, but we've really been front and center for a long time. And thus, we're remaining front and center. And as I was looking at all of the noise in what I consider to be, this is now the infighting phase of the real estate noise, where these are not the outsiders versus the insiders. This is us fighting amongst ourselves. And it is gaining popularity. And you're hearing about it in your inbox and you're hearing about it on the front page of the newspaper. But in tandem with that, things are actually going pretty well. I mean, there are markets that are incredibly challenged, but as the economic data continues to roll in quarter after quarter after quarter, the last 18 months in real estate haven't really been all that bad. The transaction counts aren't what they were in 2022, 2023, and certainly not 2021, but they aren't bad and they are ticking upward. Most markets are seeing stable price increases. And talk about how maybe you need to adjust your mindset to the reality of like, this is the new norm. Interest rates are probably not dropping tomorrow. And there is incredible abundance in what's going on out there.
Yeah. Are you swimming in abundance or are you swirling in scarcity? You think of it like a spectrum. Where are you on that spectrum? And it just comes down to what you're focused on. Wherever you are on that spectrum comes down to where you are choosing to focus, because what you focus on expands. So what we find is that people on the abundance side, they're focused on the abundance in the market. And it turns out there's quite a bit of abundance in the market. The market nationally has pretty much found a floor in 4 million sales per year. And it's been bouncing around 4 million for the last many months in a row. And we know in 2020, 21, 22, it was more like around 6.5 million. So no, it's not 6.5 million, but it found a floor at 4 million. And it's not 6.5 million, but 4 million is substantial. And one thing one of the many valuable things I learned from Larry Kendall is that all markets seek balance over time. All markets seek balance over time. And so if you look at a graph of national home sales and a history of existing home sales, what looks to be balance is about 5 to 5.5 million. So when it was 6 to 6.5, approaching 7 million, guess what? That was not balanced. We were out of balance. Right now we're out of balance. It's below balance. So we can know that as time goes on, where the market wants to be, because the markets seek balance, all markets seek balance, where the market wants to be is around 5 to 5.5 million. So that the trend is going to be up, but 4 million home sales a year produces on the order of $80 billion in commission revenue. As you mentioned, prices are essentially flat, increasing slightly across the country. I think that the stat is average prices are up year over year about 1.5%. So no, not 11.5%. It's moved a decimal place compared to 2021, 22, but that was not balance. But the market is not crashing. We have very few distressed properties. We do not have an oversupply of new construction. Bottom line, there is a market. So it's something that a real estate agent who's in scarcity, what they would say is, there's no market, no one's moving, no one's doing anything. So you always have to watch out for those kind of words, the no one, the always, never, right? But a real estate agent who's thriving is saying, the market is on fire. I am on fire. As I talk to our coaches, and this came up yesterday, I hear from them that so many of their clients are having their best year ever. I was just talking to one of our coaches yesterday. He said, a third of my clients are having the best year they've ever had. One of our coaches who is also a real estate agent, she says, my business is on fire. The market is on fire. Now, it may be hard for you to say, I am on fire, or the market's on fire, but at least say there is a market. because there is a market. So watch out for saying things like there is no market or no one's buying or selling anymore. Interest rates are too high. Be very aware of how you talk about the market, because that's evidence of where you are on that spectrum, swimming in abundance or swirling in scarcity.
Yeah. One of the things I think it's a fun exercise is most MSAs are covered by some local or national economist who puts out a report. So ask your local association who it is that is in your area. But I recently got the one for Orange County, California, and they actually have year over year, their transaction count is about flat. And that's a really positive thing, because you can sit there and say, look at all the consistency of change that is happening. And these are not abnormal events. This is happening. And the abundance is when you look at that number relative to how many of those transactions you would have to have your best year ever. And that in your own marketplace, it's a small number of the transactions that are organically going to happen, that all you need to do is create value and trust and earn your way into one of those to be the advisor that allows that opportunity to take place. And it's remarkable. They're big numbers, and you peel it down to what would change somebody's business, and it's a small percentage of
it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. Yeah.
It really doesn't.
Yeah.
I think, Eric, we talked a little bit about this, but the two teams in the game right now are sort of, I'm behind, or I'm running my hardest and I need to manage my energy through the second half. Those are the two scores that are really out there. Let's look at the I'm behind group. If there's an action step that they can take right now, what would you suggest that they do to change the rhythm or change the play to finish this year strong and win the game?
I'll give you two. You asked for one, I'm going to give you two. It always starts with mindset. So intentionally build your mindset. Have a routine in the morning that intentionally builds your mindset, that intentionally puts you into a positive energy space. So we know from the Ninja 9, when you focus on gratitudes, when you write your affirmations, also do positive reading or positive listening or positive watching on YouTube. There's all kinds of inspirational, educational videos to watch. Intentionally build your mindset. Get your mindset where it needs to be in order for you to get the results that you want to get. Always starts with mindset. And then second, just get in flow. Flow fixes everything. Flow fixes everything. So just get in flow. And the great news is you don't have to talk about real estate. You don't have to bring up real estate. You just have to ask people about their life. So just ask questions, listen for change. And I'll never forget when I was first taught that by Larry, that in this business, to be successful, all you have to do is ask questions and listen for change. It hit me so hard. I said, wait, that's it? That's all I have to do? Just ask questions, listen for change? And I appreciated that, because I'm not someone who is into, cheesy sales tactics or anything like that. And it so resonated with me. And so that's all anyone has to do. Ask questions, listen for change. So get in flow, get in live flow, start tracking who you're talking to, right? So get in live flow, write down at the end of the day who you talk to, and then write down what you learned. So it's forward and record, not just forward, it's forward and record. So,
you know my rant.
Yeah. So get on your soapbox now, Rob.
My good friend's a physician, and we get a wonderful opportunity to go for a walk or play 9 holes or something together once in a while. And more often than not, the conversation leads to the challenges that he is facing with his patients are all related to diet and exercise. Like, in all reality, lifestyle is probably the largest contributor to health issues. And he's a family practice doctor, and he just talks about it all the time. Like, it's just diet and exercise, diet and exercise. And we're talking about sports here, and diet and exercise and blocking and tackling are the two most common phrases to describe the core elements of success in something, right? They're the fundamentals, the foundational elements of success. And in Ninja, the diet and exercise, or the blocking and tackling, is forward and record. Like, if you literally can't do any of the other stuff, if you're having enough forward conversations and those forward conversations are leading to identifying change, and you're documenting that in some kind of system to create a follow-up strategy, you are going to be wildly successful if you're having enough forward conversations.
Yes. Yeah, it always comes down to that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about a friend of mine, my friend Joe, who lives here in Fort Collins. He and I have been buddies for a while. He's my bike riding buddy. And I knew that Joe's getting ready to sell his house. And I knew he was going to sell his house 2 years before Joe knew he was going to sell his house. And the reason why is I was in flow with him. We go on long bike rides and I asked Ford questions, right? We had Ford conversations. He has two daughters. Both of them are now out of the house. They're empty nesters. He has a new job where he travels all the time, oftentimes traveling to Europe. They now vacation a lot in Florida because his wife has family in Florida and he's fallen in love with Florida and boating and fishing. So he's kind of stopped skiing and snowboarding as much. So all this was going on. And in my head is, my gosh, look at all this change going on with Joe. He's going to move.
Yeah.
This change will create a change for him. There'll come a day where he says, you know what? I think I want to just buy a place in Florida. And I don't need this big house in Fort Collins. I'm traveling all the time anyway. The kids are out of the house. I could see it coming. And sure enough, a few months ago, he says to me, hey, Eric, you know what? We're thinking about selling the house. And in my head, I thought, no kidding. I saw this coming. And so that's all you have to do. And of course, because he is a business-minded person, he likes to talk about the market. And sure, we've had real estate conversations, but we've never talked. I never had to say to him, so Joe, when are you getting ready to sell your house?
Right.
He brought it up with me. So there are so many opportunities like that. Every ninja should have 20% of their sphere on their warm list. You should have 20% of your sphere filled with your Joes in your database who are having life change. And
yeah, I'm going to give you the one caveat to that because it's 20% of the database with whom you're in flow.
Yes, that's right.
Right. And so if you've got, it's remarkable to me. I see some people's databases, they've got 1,000 people in there. So how many are you actually in flow with? It's never 1,000. You can't, any one person sort of sticking to the basics of this, it would be remarkable, but it can be a few hundred and it can definitely be 150 core people. And that's a magic number. We'll talk about that some other day. But those numbers sketch out really nicely. And the one thing you brought up is you may have to stay in flow for years before anything really happens.
Yeah, but it will happen. it will happen.
Joe's going to Florida.
Yeah.
You know, the other side of this was I'm running my hardest. I'm grinding it and I feel like I'm ahead at halftime, but I need to manage my energy. I need to push through to make it and win the game that way. What suggestions, maybe more than one, do you have for ninjas that are in that camp? I think about routine. What is your morning routine? Oftentimes what happens with a really busy person is that they'll fall off on affirmations and gratitudes because they feel even too busy to do that. And so then they're starting the day on the hamster wheel. So start the day intentionally building your mindset, intentionally schedule rest. So intentionally schedule rest, time off, time with family, time with yourself into your schedule. Build a boundary around that. There are examples of this that people can listen to in other podcasts. And the interview with Deanna Foreman is coming up, so people can look that up. She was the one that said, "I'm working 25/8." Right? Her daughter said, "Mom, you're working 25/8." So where we started with her is helping her to build a boundary around Sunday, where she set expectations with her clients. These are my business hours. This is what you can expect from me. I work Monday through Saturday and from these times, and she got no pushback. And then Sunday was by appointment only. And now it's to the fact where she works no Sundays and Saturdays are appointment only. So you can do it if you are feeling apprehensive around having those kind of boundaries with your clients and you're fearful that you're going to miss out or that they're going to push back or they're going to work with someone else. That won't happen based on our evidence and on our research, our experience working with other clients. Just set the expectation, let them know these are my business hours. This is when you can expect to hear back from me, and then get your time back. Get your life back, get your schedule back. You don't have to work 25/8. So be intentional about your morning, and then start to build boundaries in your schedule. Yeah, I think I hear you saying the big rocks analogy right there, right? Make sure the big rocks go in the jar first. There is still half a year left here. And some of the most important redemption periods, times of either emotional or physical redemption where pause is really meaningful with family, are the holidays. Blocking those now, making sure that you've put those big rocks in the jar right now. Look at the last half of the year in your calendar and start with, it's how we always talk in business planning. Start by framing your time off first. And what are the periods that you're going to be out and unavailable? And how do we work to make those so that they're smooth for you, for the transactions that you have going on, for the clients that you're working with at that point in time? And it only works if you plan it ahead of time.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And just getting control, because sometimes it feels like we have no control over it. And all these things are acting upon us that is causing us to feel spread too thin or burn out. But just know that ultimately we're in charge. We're in charge of our calendar, of our schedule. We can say no. No is a complete sentence. And really just take that back, take your time back. And you'll find that your clients respond really well to that, positively to that. So
good. The last group. So I said there were two, right? There's another group, and those are the group of the figurative coaches, the leaders in this space, who are balancing not just what is going on in their own heads, but what's going on in the world around them, the people that they lead, the people that they influence, and the other people whose voices matter in these conversations. What advice do you have for leaders as they look at the middle of the year?
Know that you are watched and that your energy and how you are responding to the economy, to the market, is contagious. Another thing I was taught by Larry Kendall is that a real estate office will tend to take on the personality of the manager. A real estate company will tend to take on the personality of the owner. So the agents in your office will take on your personality. So they will show up to the extent that you're showing up. They will be engaged to the extent that you are engaged with them. They will be in the high positive energy quadrant to the extent that you are in the high positive energy quadrant. So leaders go first. So you have to go first with your energy, with your mindset, with how you're showing up, how you're responding, how you are approaching. So if you want your people to be engaged, go get really engaged with them. If you want them showing up in a positive, proactive, constructive way, you show up that way. Be super intentional with your sales meetings. Be super intentional with all of your interactions. So if they watch you tuning out, if they watch you being disengaged, if they watch you being frustrated, disappointed, whatever it is, they will take that on. It's this interesting energy transfer that happens between a manager and an agent in the office. So you have to set the tone. It sounds maybe kind of cliche, but I see it time and time again.
My favorite thing about this business is the reality that everybody is the leader of their own business, even if they see their role as broker associate, agent, whatever it is. At the end of the day, entrepreneur fits in that business card somewhere, and so does leader. You're leading your clients, you're leading your families and friends, you're leading your community, the social groups that you're a part of, and that advice right there is absolutely perfect for any of those situations, because what you bring to the table sets the tone for everything that happens.
Yes, everything. Yeah. So look, here we are at halftime, and we can all make adjustments, right? I mean, that's the gift that we have at halftime. We can analyze how things have gone, and we can decide what needs to be adjusted. We can be a whole different team in the second half, like you said, and we can just take massive action and still win. That's the opportunity we have right here in the middle of the year.
All right. So wave your magic wand and say, now it's December 31st, 2025, Eric. What has happened for the ninjas in the last 6 months?
The sentence that I hear from ninjas who are getting big results always starts with, I decided. You know what, Eric? I decided. I finally decided, and I talked a little bit about this in the webinar, if you go back and watch the webinar. I finally decided it was my time. I finally decided I was tired of these kind of results. I finally decided it was time for me to break through to a whole new level. So you hear both the pain version of the sentence and the pleasure version of the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to hire a coach. I decided to double down on the Ninja Night. I decided to finally commit to real estate reviews. I decided that 50 live interviews was completely possible and that I was going start doing it. I decided to get my database in order. So my magic wand, Rob, would be at the end of the year, the Ninja Nation collectively decided. They decided that this was their time to step up and optimize their mindset, their skill set, and their actions to get the results that they've always wanted to get.
I love it. That's a really, really good takeaway. And I've decided that sets the stage for another conversation with us about the power and potentially the most powerful words that can come out of your mouth are, I decided.
I decided.
I love it. Eric, thanks for being here. We will continue that conversation very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, man.